Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel where it is finally time for our deciduous overlord to ascend to his throne. Yes folks, King Groot is finally going to rank tree. Get it? Rank tree? Anyone? Never mind. So I'm going to talk briefly about some of his abilities, why I decided to rank him up, and then finally we'll get into some gameplay where I want to demonstrate some situations where I think that he will be useful for my account, and hopefully yours as well. So let's start by highlighting a few of his key abilities. First off, King Groot is immune to Power Drain and Power Burn, but unlike similar champs like Venom or Nihilus, this immunity is always active and not dependent on class advantage or a buff being active. So you can use this to counter annoying defenders like Guillotine 2099 and Warlock, as well as nodes like Plagued Mind. Secondly, while he has Fury buffs active, King Groot has a 100% chance to purify any debuff he receives at the cost of one of those Furies. So this kind of utility is extremely useful and pretty uncommon outside of the skill class. Now this works on any debuff type, whether it is damaging or non-damaging. This ability also makes him extremely suicide friendly, as he will purify the poison debuff from Liquid Courage at the very start of the fight. So finally, I want to touch on what is probably his most appealing feature, and that is his massive regeneration. Now, if you've been to my channel before, you know that I do a lot of content itemless, and this type of sustainability is very important to me. King Groot currently has the third highest health pool in the game, and his regeneration is so ridiculously powerful that I still can't believe it's allowed in the game. At max sig, King Groot will recover over 20% of his health every 13 seconds. Just think about that for a moment, okay? And if that's not enough, you can gain an additional 10% burst of regen whenever you want with the special 3, whenever you need it. And in fact, you've probably noticed the entire time I've been talking through these abilities, King Groot has been getting smacked around by Winter Soldier, and it takes Bucky a whopping 135 hits to finally take him out. That kind of sustainability is amazing for a champion. Speaking of regen, the first fight I want to showcase today is against this one with Energy, Adoption, Fire, and Icarus. You can see at the start of the fight that King Groot shrugs off the Incinerates and the degen from Icarus, and once his regen kicks in and combines with Willpower, he's actually out-healing the Icarus degen. So in addition here, Malice increases the potency of all Fury buffs, not just the ones that King Groot generates himself. So as the fight goes on, it's actually increasing the potency of the Fury buffs from Icarus, and before you know it, this fight is over. The next fight I want to showcase is really just to demonstrate how you can take advantage of King Groot's utility to help you counter fights or lanes that you might otherwise think you need a specific type of champion for. So this lane in Act 6 has the Shock and Spectre nodes, both of which are applied as debuffs. And you saw at the very start of the fight that King Groot immediately removed the Shock debuff using one of his Fury buffs. Now I'm not entirely sure why the Spectre debuff didn't apply here, but if it had, King Groot would have shrugged it off immediately as well. So once the nodes are taken care of, this becomes a pretty simple fight, and you can use this approach for any similar fights where debuffs are being applied at the start. Things like Poison or Incinerate, King Groot will just shrug them off and you can go about your business. Okay, so this next fight is a good one. This is the Darkhawk Boss from Act 6.4, a notoriously tricky fight that gave me a ton of trouble during my exploration. Now, as you've seen in both of the previous fights, King Groot's burst damage on the Special 2 can be absolutely ridiculous with a few Fury buffs up. But what if I told you that this damage is only a third of its true power? Because against robots, King Groot's Special 2 damage is actually tripled. So my strategy in this fight is to knock Darkhawk down during my regen phase and then intentionally hit into his auto block. Each time I do so, I'm guaranteed an additional Fury charge on my next burst phase. And my regen is going to take care of the shock damage that I'm taking from hitting into his block, so I'm not really worried about that. We can keep doing this until we land a big Special 2 with a bunch of Fury buffs active, and as you can see, this first Special 2 with 7 Furies active hits for over 90,000 damage. Now because of power efficiency, Darkhawk is going to be throwing a lot of Special 1s, but again, King Groot's regen can negate most of the block damage that you're going to have to take. So let's fast forward to later in the fight where we again have 7 Fury buffs active, but since the fight has gone on for more than 100 seconds, our Fury buff potency is now maxed out, and the second Special 2 deals over 111,000 damage and essentially ends the fight. One of the more difficult Act 6 bosses made to look pretty easy. The next fight is the Sentinel Boss from Act 616. Now this is a pretty long fight with almost anyone because with Plagued Mind and Hurt Locker both active, most champions will be unable to use more than a single special attack. But since King Groot has immunity to Power Drain, he is free to use his specials throughout the matchup and take advantage of the big damage from the special too. Having said that though, I want to call out two specific things about this matchup. King Groot has a pretty weird interaction with fisticuffs, and I'm not entirely sure it's intentional. So for the first 30 seconds of the fight, King Groot is not supposed to be able to activate any buffs. So when Malice activates after the cooldown phase, King Groot gets no Fury buffs as you'd expect. However, he is somehow still able to apply permanent armor breaks via his Special 1, despite having no Fury buffs to consume to do so. So we're going to cut to much later in the fight, and here I'm about to launch my Special 3 to get some extra regen, but I didn't realize at the time that I had a heal block on me beforehand. Never fear though, if you launch your Special 3 while a heal block is active, the regen buff will start paused and will unpause once the heal block ends. This guarantees you that regen that you needed from the Special 3. Pretty sweet. So we're going to again head back into Realm of Legends for this fight so that I can give you an idea of what you can expect from King Groot's poison damage. So poison is applied via the Special 2 and lasts for 10 seconds, but there are 3 ways that you can extend this duration. Using the Special 2 with a Fury buff will consume the Fury and instantly double the duration to 20 seconds. I'm also using the I-Bomb synergy, which increases it by another 35%. And then finally, his signature ability will increase the duration the longer the fight goes on, maxing out at 100 seconds, similar to his Malice passive. So in addition to the increased duration, you absolutely want to use the poison only when you have the Furies active because its potency is directly affected by the Furies. So as the fight goes on, your Fury buffs are going to be stronger as well, which means the poison damage will also increase as the fight goes on. Now once you have the poison up, you can pause it via the heavy attack for 3 seconds, or you can spend a Fury buff to pause it for 6 seconds. Now in my testing, I was able to get decent uptime of 2 poisons, but I found it pretty difficult to have 3 up for any significant length of time. And as you can kind of see on screen here, the poison damage is pretty good. With around 6 to 8 Furies, you can expect around 2,000 damage per second. And if you want this damage consistently, you need to be very aggressive during your regen phase in order to give more Furies to yourself for the next burst phase. I want to end this video by taking King Groot up against one of my favorite boss fights in the game, and that is the Weapon X boss from Act 7. So Weapon X is unblockable for large portions of this fight, which means you won't be able to land heavies to refresh the poison, but you still want to apply it here as part of your rotation to take advantage of the poison vulnerability node and also to reduce his regeneration. Now in a more complex fight such as this one, I found that it's rare that you're going to see the kind of big red numbers out of the poison because too many things really need to line up together. You need to generate a lot of Furies during your cooldown, and then you need to be at or near your Special 2 when Malice triggers. But even without access to the big poison damage, King Groot's basic attacks with the Furies do some really good work here. Now this fight is a bit of a long haul, so you'll be able to see how the Fury potency increases as the fight goes on. As well, notice how a very aggressive playstyle rewards you with even more damage. And I think near the end of the fight I have like 12 Furies on myself, and the numbers there are pretty nice. The last thing I want to mention about King Groot before we go is that 2 of his synergies are currently broken, and when they're fixed, he is going to have even more damage available to him. So with Man-Thing, you'll be guaranteed an extra 2 Furies every time Malice triggers, and with I-Bomb, you'll be gaining more Fury charges and have a chance to place poison on your basic attacks while your regen phase is active. That's about it for this one. I am really happy with this rank up so far, and I hope that I've given you some things to consider if you're thinking about ranking up King Groot as well. If you liked this video and didn't mind all of the tree-related puns, please hit that like button for me, and take a moment to subscribe if you haven't already, and don't forget to leave a comment below. Alright, I promise that's the last one, okay? As always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.